And we're recording. Yay. That's a good lesson for me.
Always learning, always in school.
Always in school. It's a constant. Cannot minimize Zoom. Okay, no problem. We're not minimizing it. So we are live over here, and I'm going to open up the my Facebook here so we can see what's going on. And how are you, Donnie?
Doing great. I'm in the same school that you're in, which is the School of Technology, trying to figure out this Facebook and Zoom business.
That's
I
right.
don't know. I know them independently, but connected, I'm clueless.
Yeah.
Right?
You seem like you have your video editing skills are you're cranking them out.
Yeah, the editing I've gotten down. I've done. I started editing videos back in 2010, so celebrating 10 years. I've probably produced well over 1,000 videos. So
A
that's
thousand videos.
oh,
Wow.
easily, easily. Yeah, so it's funny because every time I do it, I feel like I should just be doing, you know, the same thing, like being on a treadmill. You take the same steps all the time. It should be
Yeah.
like that, but it never is. There's always something new that I figure out, a tweak here, a tweak there. So it's fun. That's one of the reasons I really love it is, because I'm not one of these guys that loves routine, the kind of routine that just becomes repetitive. I need a new challenge. Like even when it comes to exercise, I know you're an exercise guy, right?
I am an
So,
exercise guy, yeah.
so I mean, yeah, you're physically fit. The guys, when I grew up, I never got into the gym and hit the weights
Yeah.
because number one, the smell was horrible back in the day. The smell was just bad, right? It's like, oh God, you guys, come on, give me a break
Yeah.
here. But the other thing was, it's just like, sit there and just do this over and over and over. It's like, okay, this
It's
isn't
it
going
can
to
get
work out.
boring.
And
Yeah.
it gets really boring for me. So I've got to be dynamic and moving. So I was always like a cardio guy. And in playing sports, that's kind of how I stay fit, just playing sports. Any game, any guy, soccer, here, come on, let me play, coach. Whatever it was, I just went out and did it. But when it came to like physical fitness, I just relied on cardio and that sort of thing. Only in the last like year, actually, in this last year, I really started getting into the gym. They smell nicer now, I guess. I don't know what it is. They've done something with the smell. And I actually started hitting. I'm 58 years old. I'm still hitting personal best, like new
Yes.
personal best, man. Isn't that cool?
Yes. Something
But
to
then,
aspire to.
but then the coronavirus hits, and like I can't go to the gym anymore, and it's killing me. It's absolutely killing me, man.
Wow. Yeah,
So
you know what?
I used to never lift weights, and now I can't get enough of it.
It's there's something about it. It is like I mean I love all different types. I mean I love all different types of fitness, and I definitely enjoy the weightlifting. I love the running. I love the dynamic stuff. I also love to train like sparring and MMA and stuff like that. If you've ever done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like a that when you talk about dynamic and talk about exercising your brain and in your body in the most random and awkward ways. Brazilian jiu-jitsu would be it. That's using every single part of your brain imaginable in order to be able to just to learn. There's I think there's like thousands of different combinations in BJJ, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. And so I mean I'm not doing that right now, but right now I'm doing what I can. I'm doing some running, doing a lot of running right now, and jump roping. But every exercise has its own its own thing that it's giving you. You know what I mean? With the running, it's a whole mind game. There's a whole challenge to yourself. With lifting weights, it's another type of high. You
Mhm.
feel that the testosterone. That's really what it's building there. And your muscles are just growing. You feel that, and so there's so many. All the different exercises are great, and but this isn't this isn't an exercise a live stream. We're
No, I
exercising
mean
something
it's
else.
an exercise between the years, right? Trying to figure all this other stuff out,
Yeah,
which really is what parenting's all about too. It's just like
yeah.
it's not about
Yes.
how big your muscles are or anything like that. It's really about, what's going on up here.
Yeah.
And just like you need control of the weights, free weights. If you let go of this hand, the weights are gonna just fall down on you, right? And it's all about balance, and there's a rhythm to it, right? There's a rhythm to it, and there's a cadence to it, and there's a way to breathe through it. So there's a lot to just like lifting that weight, right? So and being a parent is really the same thing. Just, it's the same type of a framework. It's just applied to parenting. You've got to pay attention to all of these little dynamics that are happening. So like lifting the weight is like paying attention to where your child's at developmentally speaking, right? Like you're lifting here and it gets higher and higher, and it's stretching different parts of your muscles at different places.
Right.
And then when you get to here and you're trying to max out and hold, it's like trying to hold the attention of your child and having them be able to hold their focus and attention on you. The communication is so critical, because that's how we exchange information to one another, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times with parenting, it's just about, we're horrible at communicating.
No.
We get impatient with it,
Let's
right?
let's start off with the real stuff here for a second. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
so this is the reality. Single dad, single mom. You don't have to be a single dad or a single mom. But when kids are fighting with each other, I mean, and let's add Corona into the mix also, and kids being home, which is a whole nother dimension to this, right? Like, kids are fighting over stuff. They're fighting over toys. They're playing 1 second beautifully, and the next second, they're fighting because one wants to hold the dog and the other one wants to hold the dog. And you're talking about communication and stuff like that. That is extremely challenging when your nerves are really, when you're really dealing with your own nerves during that time. Like, I mean, come on, like it's very easy to get angry at the kids. I mean, we're humans, we feel, and it's very easy to get upset. And so how does one even go about dealing with challenges like that when you're just dealing with your own, your own nerves?
Yeah, I think the way you have to really come to terms with it is, on one hand, you got to separate the two. Like, you got to get your own act together while you're trying to get their act together. But at the same time, you have to meld those two things together, because how you go about dealing with your own crap is how you're modeling how to deal with your own crap to your kids, right? We don't go to school. Think about this. I'm going to pose a question to you. We're going to come full circle on this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you a question here. Why do we go to school?
Why do we go to school?
Why do we go to school?
We go to school to learn and develop the tools that we need, to live a life, live a happy life. I would assume. Listen, it is a two-leveled question, because I think that there's things we're learning in school that we don't need to right now. You're asking about what I think we need to learn in school.
No, just what's the purpose of school?
Purpose of school is for us to learn the tools that we need to live in society.
Right. That is in a nutshell. I mean, another way I put a spin on it is like, a school is preparing us for employment of some sort. It's all external. It's how to deal with everything out there that we experience. But what school never teaches us is how to deal with the stuff that's going on in here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't learn that stuff in school, and that's a shame that we don't.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as parents, since we never learned that in school, and our parents didn't teach that to us, we're kind of just stepping on ourselves, trying to demonstrate how to deal with the inner world to our children.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where we really screw it up.
Which is everything. I mean, that's the whole foundation for the way that you experience your life. And so it's interesting that that's not something that's focused on at all.
Yeah, well, that's why I created Star Family Coaching. It's to teach the inner world stuff to parents who can then turn that learning and that understanding and teach it to their kids. Because I really think we can straighten out 90% of the craziness that we have on this planet in about 2 generations. but it's
Oh,
got to
that's,
start. It's got to start at home.
yeah,
It's not, the government's not going to take care of us. There's no organization out there that's going to, there's no reason for them to do that. The only reason would be that they understand what the marketplace, which is they will supply what we demand, right? If we're not demanding them to teach us how to operate internally, they'll never teach that to us. So we have to start now with understanding that we need to get our heads together, which basically self-development. And, one of the ways you do an excellent job. You're in great physical shape, right? You stay on top of that. And that helps balance you out so you can start operating on the internal stuff as well,
absolutely
right?
huge.
Without the other, if you were just sitting around popping pretzels in your mouth all day, watching TV, and you got a big beer belly, I mean, what would that do to your head?
I can tell you that. I mean, me personally, but there's a lot of things going on in my life, a lot of things that I need to handle. And there is without a doubt that the physical fitness and the physical fitness, the meditation, the breath work, all of it has an incredible influence. And specifically right now, I would say that we're in a time when we're all stuck at home. You know, that even more so how it comes into play and gives me the ability to deal and to not just deal, but I think to thrive with the challenges that come. It doesn't mean that I don't have challenges like anyone else, but it means that I'm able to stay much more level-headed. And then again, to add another thing, I don't have family here, right? So I don't have that support system either. So I think that I personally believe for single parents, especially that their physical and their mental and emotional health is so important.
Yeah, I think if you want to be a good parent, you have to use the analogy of getting on the airplane, right? You're on the airplane and we go through the same process every single time, right? You put your seatbelt on. All of a sudden, here comes that public service announcement that they always make, right? In case of an emergency, the mask will drop down. You put it on yourself first, and then you attend to others, right? Well, we should be practicing that anyways. You can only deliver 100% of you if you are 100% available. And
Absolutely.
if you don't make yourself 100% available, then you're only going to deliver a fraction of yourself.
Hmm.
And if we were to flip things around, I don't want 50% of Joshua to help me out. I want 100% of Joshua, right? But if you're like, you're going so far the other way with your like selfless and not selfish, you're gonna end up tearing down your house.
Yep.
Your internal house is going to get torn down, and then your delivery is going to be less and less and less and less. And at some point, you're going to be completely ineffectual,
Hmm.
right? And then I'm not going to ask for help from you anymore, and you're going to feel shitty about that. And then you're going to, I mean, so listen. What I'm saying is, guys, you got to be a little bit selfish, okay?
Always.
Honestly, that's what you have to do. You got to take an hour or two of your day every day and say, this is all about me.
Yep.
It's all about me. Because if I don't get my act together, I'm not going to be there for my kids. I just won't be. I'll be giving 90% of myself, which isn't good enough. It should never be good enough. Giving 90% when there's 100% of you potentially there, you got to give 100%. Otherwise, you're always behind the game, right? So, that's my take on it. I think if you're going to be a parent, and you've talked about it already, you're dealing with your own shit, and then you're trying to deal with your kids. If you got a lot of shit going on in you inside of your head, you got to take care of that first.
Absolutely.
You got to
Absolutely.
get that. You got to take that, first, and then, of course, it doesn't mean I'm going to spend the next 4 years only focused on me, and I'm not going to deal with my kids at all. That's not the answer either. You've got to have a balance here.
So I
Your
want
kids need you. Your kids need
absolutely
you. So,
uh,
but you've got to spend some focusing time on getting your act together.
100%. I want to point out that this is a pattern I see often. Um, I think that I saw it in myself. That's number one. And it's a pattern I see in many men. to especially ones you know that I work with after breakups or divorce, that well, there's a pattern where we want to be selfless, that as men we are the givers, we're the providers, and this is something I think we're also, you know, we're biologically hardwired to do. But what often will happen is people will step into a relationship or step into a relationship, and then will lose themselves. And the same way that we're talking about being there to be able to be present for your children, this is something that comes off often, that the people that lose that core necessity, to take care of themselves within a relationship also, um, that it affects them, and it's something that happens that people will, it's like, I want to be there for you so much that I'm going to forget about myself, and then once I forget about myself, I end up being more pissed than I am usually. I'm not able to give as much as I can. I'm upset, and my boundaries are now lost and broken. And it's something that I've seen so much. So I think what you're talking about is such a crucial and important part. And also, we're talking on a physical level, but we're also talking on a mental and emotional health level, that time for myself, that time to be alone, and that time to be with my friends. These are all really, really important to build ourselves up and to be able to give, like you're saying. It's key, and I'm happy that we're talking about it, because it's interesting how often I've seen that come up within men.
Yeah, I think with guys, we're a little more left brain, and so for us to have maybe a schedule set up for ourselves, like what I've dedicated AM. AM is all about me. That my AM hours, and of course, like 8 of it's been I'm sleeping during those 8 hours. So I'm really only focusing on me for 4 awakened hours. But I don't do anything for anybody else unless I absolutely want to do so in those 4 hours. I make sure of that. Now,
Yep.
occasionally I'll sacrifice the time here, but I'm keeping track of that. I am. I'm taking physical note of that, and then I'll get my hour later in the day or something. But it doesn't mean that I'm excluding people out of my life during that time. I actually exercise with my wife, so she's kind of like a exercise partner. But I don't take on any other burdens, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to schedule appointments in the morning to meet with clients, or and it's not happening, because I know if I do that, when I get to PM, which is people mode, right? I'm going
I
into
love
people mode,
it. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I'm focusing on everybody else. And I know that 4 hours of getting myself in physical good shape, mental good shape, and just getting my day ordered, in an orderly manner, bam, I'm so much more productive in the afternoon. So I can do more in the afternoon, that and doing that versus just waking up. If I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning and just jumped into my daily schedule and I worked till 10 o'clock at night, 15 hours, I wouldn't get as much done as I can get done in 6 hours in the afternoon doing it this method, because I don't make mistakes. I'm not screwing up. I'm not wasting time. I'm not having to fix things over and over and over and over, which, if you don't take care of yourself, that's what we end up doing. We start making a lot of mistakes.
There's so many different aspects to it, and this is something that's shared, by a lot of people, and a lot of people in the self-development world, and is having that time, the necessity of having that. I like that. All me was a great all me, and people wait, all me was AM, and then PM was
People mode.
people mode. Yes.
Going to
Yes.
people mode.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Yeah. So for me, for instance, I'm going to bring up my own, myself. Well, I have the kids in the morning, right? I got my kids that I need to take to school, and it's still very important for me to get the me in the morning time. And what I have my personal morning routine is that when I'm up, when the kids are in school, I'm up, and they get themselves breakfast, and they get dressed, and I let them have some TV time. That's we don't watch much TV in my house other than Thursday night we have movie night. Other than that, we don't do the TV, and I'm very proud of that, and I like to be proud of that. But except for that morning time, which is amazing because they get on, they're excited to watch TV, and they get themselves dressed, they brush their teeth, they get everything ready. They're like gorgeous and sitting there and all ready for school, and it's like yes, I get up and I help them set up for breakfast, and then I go and I have my meditation mode. And as soon as meditation mode is done, then we get them off to school, and then that's it. So, and then I continue my mornings. I usually will go exercise or I'll take my dog for a walk. But again, that's a routine that is really added to my life, and I think that there's also a part about it. There's a self love there, which is often it's reflecting something much deeper to you when you are taking that time for yourself in the morning, and reflecting that, and doing that in the morning is something that your kids see, like you said, at the end of the day, like they will model that.
Yep.
And it's important. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
great. I see that you have figured out a great reward consequence type of situation with your girls, where if they get dressed and ready for school, then they get rewarded, right, for something that they want, which they must have implied to you. This is what we like to do, and you picked up on that and go, all right, and that's being a smart parent. So you don't have to go the punishment route. Right? You don't have to yell and scream at them to get them to get ready for school and threaten them to do all this. No, you've flipped it around, which is a smart thing to do, right? And say, let me figure out what these kids really love to do. And they love TV. Okay, so what can I do to incentivize them?
Yeah.
So I get what I need, because otherwise you're going to be dressing them. Your morning is going to be just completely a mess compared to how orderly it is now, right?
It's
So that's
incredible.
genius. There you go, guys. Do the Josh Edelstein way of getting your kids ready for school. I love it. Yeah.
It works wonders for me.
That's good, man. Proud of you. That's good.
Oh, look, we have a couple comments on here. Haven't been. We got 4 comments. We got Ari 8 minutes ago, because we're on a little bit of a lag here. So when I'm looking up, I'm seeing it. We got Jeff. Hello, guys. Hey, Jeff. How are you? Mental exercise is the toughest kind. That's right. We have Ari Block. Ari is an amazing mentor. And bingo, I use the oxygen mask metaphor a lot. Absolutely. Listen, if you guys have any questions and anybody wants to add on, do me a favor, message them. I'll be checking my screen with the my Facebook screen, but I'm not using it because I'm using the Zoom screen, which is more in time. Yeah. So tell us more, Donnie. Where's some of the things that often that we are going to be dealing with is a lot of, we have kids at home. The kids are not in school. What do we have? Any suggestions for I mean, I'm sure there's so many different ages also, but what do you have to tell us?
Well, I think one of the things is this is happening a lot, obviously, and I've got a lot of people, like some of my fellow coaches have been contacting me lately and go, I don't know what to do. And so I've really been on top of this one. So this is in my wheelhouse, if you will. So I think the first thing we have to do is try to put ourselves in the perspective of the child. And in a child's mind, typically, if they haven't gone through puberty yet, younger children, they are really associative oriented, meaning school is where they go to learn, right? They put that as packaged in a box with their brain, right?
I don't like learning.
Right? Or, the playground is where I go to get on the swing set. Boom. So if you say, hey, I want to put a swing set in the house, they're going to be going, huh? It didn't work. That sort of thing. So it's the same thing if you're doing virtual schooling, like that's big over here for the coronavirus thing. The kids were like, boycotting everything in the beginning, like, I don't want to do that. So you have to understand that their behavior is a reaction to the discomfort and the disassociation of the world that they're experiencing now, right? So for us, it's an easier adaptation because for most of us now, and especially in this age, we're doing a little bit of work at home. We're doing a little bit of work. We're doing work all over the place, right? So if we're having to work at home, now I got my own office here. It's just, I mean, I'm in my home now and I have an office here. This is where I do my work. So for me, I'm feeling no discomfort. It's just another day in paradise, right? Except there's a lot of noise in the background. It's a little irritating, but I accommodate and figure out how to work around all that. But for my kids who are used to going to a facility and being surrounded by their peers, that whole world has completely been obliterated.
Yeah.
And we have to understand what that must feel like and how long it would take, because that's a transitional shift. Just like it took you a long time to get over the divorce thing, this is a process. It's a traumatic change that's happening in their lives. Not on the same magnitude scale, obviously, but still it's a big, big adjustment for them. And they live moment to moment. So this is a huge, big moment, dynamic shift for them. We have to better appreciate until we get them into a new mold that feels comfortable for them, that period of time, which could be a couple of weeks. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of strange behaviors. You're going to be dealing with just all kinds of reactions and outbursts that you probably haven't seen in a while, or just an escalation of what you've already been seeing. And just get ready for it. Get ready for the storm. Buckle in. It's coming your way, man.
So, well, first off, over here in Israel, we've been on official, lockdown. I think schools have been out for about a month now. So we started pretty early over here. So there's definitely been, I've kind of lost track at this point, but I definitely saw an escalation with, in terms of the fighting and because what I've noticed is that they need schedule, they need some sort of schedule, and they need boundaries in their daily, and through their daytime. And for myself, what we're doing is their mom has provided a schedule, and that schedule is we don't keep exact to it, meaning it's not we're not like super exact about it, but what we will do is that we will I will structure things one after the other, so that there's some sort of structure to it, and that I do try to keep at 3 o'clock that we're going to be doing science, math, or geography, or at 2 o'clock we're going to be doing this, but in terms of a balance where it's sort of like being where it's still flexible. And you had mentioned something really important before that I personally never even realized, and that was about meal times, about having meal times consistent throughout the day.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that's something that I thought about. I said, yeah, wow, that's a big one. I think, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that has a lot to do with our circadian rhythm. It has a lot to do with our circadian rhythm is balanced and how it works throughout the day. Am I correct?
No, that's part of it. And there's energy factors. I mean,
Yeah.
Meal is fuel. It's fuel for the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
I put out a course called Behavior Hacking for parents. Because oftentimes we see our kids misbehaving and we make an assumption on what it is that they're thinking is driving that behavior. And most of the time we're completely off the mark. So what I did is I created kind of a checklist for parents to go down, to go, okay, it could be this, could be this, could be. And right at the top is going to be sleep schedules, meal schedules, and more importantly, what is it that they're actually eating? Okay, because if you have them eat on a schedule, but they are loading up on sugar, right? They're going to be like off the charts there for the first half hour, 45 minutes.
They they just went to sleep and they didn't get to watch any TV at the mom's house today. They got to watch them here, and they said, "Chocolate, give us chocolate!" Ooh, and they were yelling, like pushing me down.
Yeah.
No
There's
chocolate
some
right now.
tricks. There's some tricks to that too. You can create, if you make chocolate, we make our own chocolate, and we make it with a non-glycemic sugar. So it basically, you get the sweetness, but you don't get that spike. So it tastes good. Boom, you know. So I mean, there are workarounds with these things. So you can accommodate them, and give, make them happy if you want to do that. But at the same time, what I'm really most concerned with is what we put in their bodies, right? And what they're using as fuel, because they really can become slaves to sugar, right? I mean, they could be like this with you 1 second, and suddenly they chop down a Snickers bar or something, and then their attention span, which is already a lot smaller and shorter than adults, just disappears. It's like, boom, boom, they're just like all over the place at that point. And you were talking about that earlier, like one time, at one point they want to play with this, and then they're over here playing with that. Sometimes we need to step back and go, okay, what did she eat a little while ago? Could I be contributing to this lack of focus, because I'm not providing real nourishment to this child? I'm just giving them happy food. and
Yeah.
and so that's really critical. Also, just paying attention to their form of communication, which is everyone's form of communication, which is body language and expression, facial expressions. Sometimes if we just sit back and observe and watch our children, we can pick up on a lot on what's going on. And you can sit there and journal it if you want to, but you can go, okay, wow, she doesn't look like she's too happy. And almost about 5 minutes later, you can see she's going to be beating on the cat or something. So there's a pattern there.
So
it's about really becoming more of, you got to kind of step back in the situation and really observe, rather than waiting for a behavior that gets out of hand to explode and then you respond to it. If you take some pauses throughout the day just to go and check and really observe and say, okay, she looks like she's pretty peaceful and happy. Probably for the next 15, 20 minutes, you're going to have peace in the house. But if you really you go in there and she's kind of like this, oh, okay, there's an explosion about to happen. And if we go, well, she hasn't screamed or yelled for a moment, I got another 5 minutes ahead of me of peace. That's not the strategy. You got to go in and say, hey, what's going on? You look like you're a little agitated or upset. I felt that way before. And so tell me what's going on with you. And if they don't want to open up, you tell your story of what happened, right? You got to connect with them at that emotional level. Whatever they're feeling, we need to connect with them there. And then we can move up into the thoughts, into the thinking processes after that. But children are really emotionally and physically driven. And if you want to connect with them, that's the starting place. Don't go in and go, what are you thinking about? And, what was in your head when you decided to do that kind of business that a lot of us will do as parents. You're not going to get anywhere with them.
Yeah, it's like a completely two different levels of communication. I want to mention this is huge. It's really probably one of the most powerful and helpful pieces of advice that I have gotten was from a CBT therapist that I actually personally had visited. And I felt that with my older daughter that we were having, at least I was having a hard time with a lot of tantrums and meltdowns. And I just didn't want to deal with it. It's very difficult, to have to go through that, especially when you're, again, alone and after a day of work. And I just didn't know what or how to handle that. And she had mentioned, I told her a lot about my daughter, and she had gone over some, a tip, she sort of saw into her and mentioned that she wanted me to, first off, to communicate to her that I was with her, that when she would storm off, that I could communicate to her, listen, I see that you're upset and it must be, I understand that it's upsetting. And I know, even if she did something that was not not okay, that was against the rules, that that I understand that you're upset and this is very difficult for you. Still throwing a chair is not okay, but I can still see how how it was hard for you to go through that. And what she communicated is to have me communicate to my daughter that I am with her. That even if she storms off the side and she because she's pushing me away, she's like, "Don't, they can't get away from me." And I would come over and I said, "Listen, I can see you're upset. I just want to let you know that I'm with you. I'm with you. Do you want me to come sit down next to you? No, get away. That's okay. That's fine. Just let you know I'm here. I'm with you, and I'll come back and check in 10 minutes." And I saw an absolutely huge transformation with her, where her emotions or feelings are being, number one, being validated. That and number two, she was she would calm, and it would take her she would come out of those those tantrums on her own. And it seemed to me that it really empowered her to really start thinking and feeling and being more present with what was going on. Obviously, for however a 7-year-old or 8-year-old can be present. And I saw some really incredible changes. And this is something that I felt has been so important, is that we often with children is what'll often happen is parents will be like, stop crying, or don't do this, or like you said, get upset that they're over them, that they're acting in a particular manner, which is totally understandable. But what I found, one of the most important things, and you could obviously elaborate on this, is that their emotions need to be validated. That they're at a point where they're developing their understanding of what they're experiencing, and they need it mirrored by someone older, older than them. I can say that personally in my growing up, and I'm sure many other people that didn't have it mirrored to them. It creates this maybe some, first off, a potential shame around an experience or an emotion, and number two, uh, a misunderstanding. They start to to not to not understand, or to not have I guess alignment between their emotions and what it is that they're feeling. Between what it is that they're feeling and how to act on it, or what it means to them. Like, there's a language there, right? Like, there's a particular language that one develops and understands, as a child growing up, in regards to the way that they're feeling. And for people that don't have it mirrored to them, it can it turns it can turn into an issue. And often,
Yeah, it's brilliant what you just described, because it really does fall right into a lot of the frameworks as a life coach that I use. And it sounds like, from a CBT standpoint, it sounds like she was also very much familiar with another modality called ACT, which is actually something I'm producing a course for right now, which really does touch on this idea, which is more than an idea, it's an actual developmental process where we connect with each other at the emotional level. Because that's the progression of things. We start off with this universal language called emotion that we all understand. We all understand what anger looks like. You can walk up to somebody and see the expression on their face and see that intensity and know that that's not a happy face,
yeah,
right? We know that our language, our first universal language, is emotion. And as a child's developing, they're trying to figure out the linguistic language that you and I will speak. Okay, and that's difficult. And they're trying to literally translate how these emotions to feelings, because that's a broader perspective of just raw emotion. It gets more complicated. A feeling is sort of a mixture of a number of emotions, right? So now the next level up is trying to tie that to a word, so we can communicate to each other what it is that we feel. So it gets really layered and deep. But a child is only masterful at the emotional level because that's what they were born with. And they start off with that and they take it with them for the rest of their lives. We take it with us for the rest of our lives. We are emotional creatures first and foremost. And so if you want to connect with people, you got to get down on that level, and especially with children. So as soon as you get out of the headspace and you're talking in terms and words and using all these things that they don't quite understand yet, and you get down with them and you get eye to eye with them and you do exactly that technique of mirroring the emotions, you don't even have to say anything. Just if she's really sad and upset, just go over, just sit with her like this. And then when she makes the eye contact, she understands that you understand.
Wow. Wow.
She understands that you understand because you're just, and then you can reach your hands out like this. And if she wants to grab your hands, she will. When she's ready to be received, you bring her in, and then you can say, listen, I felt like that so many times. And this is what I've done. And you can start teaching her at that point so that you plant that seed in her head so that the next time she feels that way, she doesn't throw a chair. She has another option. And she's receiving that option from somebody that she really feels like understands her because you've gotten on her level. Instead of talking down at her, which most parents do. We just do it because we don't know that. Yeah. You know, we're conditioned, especially guys, right? We're conditioned almost from the time we're up and running that we got to stop crying. You know, boys don't cry. You're not supposed to cry. That you got to be a tough guy, right? We all got to be tough guys. You get knocked down, you get up, you don't say a word. You know, and if somebody smacks you in the face, you smack them back. I mean, it's that sort of thing, right? And what's happening is this natural thing that we're designed to do is being conditioned away from us. We become like Pavlov's dog, but like you can't cry anymore.
Right.
You're not permitted to. It's not cool. And then we spend the rest of our lives growing up practicing this new skill of not crying and not showing our emotions. And then when we become parents, we believe that that's the formula that we need to teach to our kids. But that's why we have so many people with depression, so many people with anxiety, so many people going to sell, so many people seeing guys like me, because we have screwed up the design factor, right? We're designed to be emotional creatures, and we're taking those pieces off of our design, right? If you're designed to fly and you take your wings away, you don't fly anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And so the idea of allowing your child and acknowledging those emotions, that's critical. That is so critical. It's critical for any relationship, but especially with a child, to acknowledge their emotions first. Let's forget about the consequences of their actions at this moment. Yeah, they could have broke a window. Okay, we're going to set that aside. We will eventually address that, but we must first connect with what's going on that got to that point, right?
Yeah.
And we have to connect at the emotional level with the child and sit with them long enough where they really understand that we understand them and that they understand us. So when we make that connection, and you can feel it and they can feel it too, then you move up to the next level, and then you move up to the next level, and eventually you get to the point to where she's not going to want to throw something through a window. She's just going to go and talk to you about her issues. And that's what we want. We want our kids to come to us when they have a problem, because we've been around long enough to solve all of their problems, right? Their problems are simple compared to adult problems. Right?
Amazing.
But if we continue to talk down at them or speak to them in such a way that their takeaway is that they don't get me, they just don't understand me. You're speaking this high language here that I don't understand. I speak the language of emotion. Why can't you speak emotion with me?
My smaller daughter will say that to them sometimes. She says, "No one understands me." You know, when she's upset over something, no one understands me.
Right. Exactly. So you got to get down on that level where she feels like you understand her. Because the only thing that she's mastered, and all children master this, is the language of emotion. It's only later we learn, language and expression and all this in other forms. But our first language is the emotional language.
Listen, sometimes we don't even learn that. I think that's part of what I like to do is to be able to help people really feel, experience, and understand what it is that they're going through. Because often it'll happen that people won't allow themselves to feel what's going on, and it's often will turn into a protective mechanism, and it just gets pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And like you said, those wings, are cut off. The wings that the butterfly needs to fly, or and you'll find this often with men. I think that's it's something that's it comes as a result of the culture around, like you said, how men need to act, or how we think how we think that we're meant to act within society. And so this is something that I think is changing. I think that the more that we have these conversations, and the more that the more that we're interacting, and the more that we're speaking about how to raise our children, also the more that we learn about ourselves, about our own emotions, and how to be able to and to speak and communicate, and how to live and be healthy. I wanted to mention a another thing that I had read in a book about children when parents get angry at are angry with their kids, that small children are often very egocentric, right? Not often, they are, because as they're developing, right, this is how they're developing their who they are in context to the world, who they are in context to themselves, who they are in context to the people around them, and they're creating this structure of identity. And what will happen is if, because kids are so egocentric, and it's natural that they can take their parents' anger, or and as a way that they're angry at themselves, and see it as being angry at who they are themselves, and not in a situation, that they can't separate the two. And this is something that I read in a book called I don't know, actually, I'm gonna post it after, but I forgot the name of the book. And it was very interesting, because it really taught me a lot about how the way that children perceive, and I thought that it was very interesting.
Yeah, I follow a lot of different developmental theorists, and one of the more modern day ones is a guy by the name of Robert Keegan, and he kind of took Jane Lovinger's model of ego development, and he just sort of enhanced it and brought it to today's terms. What's interesting in his developmental theory is what you just described. We go through this process of having an ego develop, which is very early in life. In fact, when we first born, we have no ego. We have no concept of anything. It's just like imagine if all of your senses were removed and 5 new senses were attached to your body, and you woke up one day like that. How bizarre the world would appear. You wouldn't have any idea of what the signals were bouncing into your brain. It would take you a long time to figure that out, right? So, but that's what happens to a newborn. They come on, boom, all the sensors are online, but they're not even refined yet. It takes 6 to 8 years before the senses are fully refined. So you're getting a whole bunch of messed up signals that are constantly changing those first few years. So you really can't get too hooked up on the outside. So you're forced to develop something that makes sense on the inside. So this creates the emergence of ego, right? So your ego gets developed, and then suddenly at some point you realize that you have to relate to the world if you want to survive. You're completely dependent on your environmental agents, your parents, to get you through those first couple of years. But at some point you become a little bit self-sufficient. You can go grab your own glass of water. You can go grab a banana or whatever you need to eat. I mean, you start to understand I can do for myself to some extent. And it's that time between I'm completely helpless to I can do something, that transitory phase where ego and the outside world are starting to intermix. And when we have these lessons that we're so dependent on from our parents become are like deities to us, right? They can do no wrong. They're providing us with nourishment, a roof over our head. They are the perfect creatures, right? They're providing everything for us. Now they are also behaving in a way and telling us, you did a bad thing. And exactly what you said, you learn from that, and you're trying to mesh the difference between your ego experience and the outside world. And suddenly the message crosses over, and suddenly you go, I'm a bad person. I've been told by my deity that I'm a bad person, right? And then that becomes cemented into our being from that point forward. At some point, a trigger could occur to where that comes back up at age 35, at age 45, at age 65. It doesn't matter what age. Something will trigger that moment where you decide, I'm a terrible person, because you were in the middle of this developmental process, and that was the lesson that was learned. So these are issues that parents need to be mindful of, because we have to really pay attention to what it is, what we're saying, and even more than just what we're saying, just the energy that we're putting out, right? You've got to put out a positive vibe, a vibe that is conducive to autonomy, a vibe that produces initiative, a vibe that puts out support and encourages exploration and discovery. That's what we need to put out. But oftentimes parents are quick to judge and push those opportunities away. And what we end up with is a child that's filled with guilt and shame.
That's terrible. Yeah.
And we grow up, our first default whenever we make a mistake is, it's all my fault. I'm a terrible person, right? And so it's so important. This first 3 to 5 years, how we behave around our children are so critical. I mean, that's the foundation of who we're going to become for the rest of our lives. And unfortunately, parents, we don't get this information in school. You didn't learn this at your public high school or your private high school, or even at community college or any of that stuff, unless you specifically signed up for those classes. In my opinion, this should be mandated stuff. At high school, when you're learning a bunch of crap, you should be learning about human development and what's going on at the mind, in your mind. So when you start communicating with folks that are less developed, which are children are just adults under construction. And so when we start talking to them at these different ages, we modify our language to where it's most appropriate and most beneficial to them growing up.
Are you, do you want to give some examples? Can you give some examples of that?
In which area?
In what age, you mean?
Oh, at what age?
Yeah.
Well, I developed a system called the Cognition Tower, and it's a framework that I created a course for, and I also use it in a number of other parenting courses. And really all it is it's a pretty simple 4-step process. You look, and it's not all biological. I mean, it's not all chronological in its determination. We're fixated on birth date numbers and stuff. That's not how we develop at all. We have a developmental age, and it could be 3 years plus or minus your actual birth date. That's the way it works. So you have to be mindful of the fact of where your child is on this developmental process. Not all 12-year-olds act like 12. There's 12-year-olds that are behaving like 9 right now out there, and there are others that are operating like they're 15. There's a big difference between a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so in society, we just push kids along based on their birth date. And so that's one of the big problems we have with our educational system is that, oh, that's your birth date. You're supposed to be at this level. We're going to move you along, or you're labeled a failure, right? So this is the problem. If we identify that some of us are going to be late bloomers and some of us are earlier bloomers, we can put people in those proper categories. and educate them at the level that they're ready to develop at. And while we can't force that on society at this point, we can do that at home. We can do that at home. We can pay attention to where it is our children are on this cognition tower and create a communication strategy that we're going to use for our children. So there's one that takes place, really you don't really have to concern yourself with level one. That's when they're babies. Okay, everybody gets a pediatrician book. We know how to deal with babies. But it's from that point forward, the next 3 levels, we get zero education on. So when they're about, I call it the walkie-talkie phase. As soon as they start learning to walk and talk, you've got to start creating an environment for that child to be more autonomous and more initiative in their operations. And so we don't want to be going and grabbing them and picking them up and slapping their hand every time they do something that doesn't fit our rules, right? We want to create a safe environment, but we want to encourage exploration. And at this point in time, this is when we can communicate and really get down on that emotional level. And we might want to introduce some words to them to help them develop better language skills. The next level is when they enter grade school. And now it's not just they're the masters of their domain. And that second level, by the way, is where ego opens up. And they believe that they're the puppet masters.
I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. Is it that stage where they just want to do everything by themselves?
Yeah, I want to do it by myself. Or, they'll throw a tantrum, right? That's the tantrum stage typically, until they get what they want, because they're exploring all these opportunities. They're trying to figure out how to manipulate the world because they're egocentric and they think they're the center of the universe. And they, oh, I grabbed this cup and it fits nicely in my hand, and oh, that works. I need a new cookie. How do I get a cookie? Daddy, cookie. I mean, this is the way it works, right? All right, so the next level, they're introduced to socialization. They got to compete for attention with a professor or a teacher standing in front of them, right? Everybody wants the same thing, and so you have to learn how to get by in society. And so you start to create these rules. And through that development of rules, you're also comparing yourself to other people. Competency becomes a major player. Your self-esteem is on trial. This is what's happening. You're either good as somebody else or you're not. And you're constantly being reminded by your peers who don't speak. They speak emotional language mostly. So they're telling you, you're fat and ugly. That's what they're telling you. And you're, oh, must be I'm a horrible person. Or you're, hey man, look at him. He got straight A's. Oh, teacher's pet. So we're getting it all the time from our peers. And while that matters, we're really paying attention to the adults in the room. And if the teachers guide us right, the coaches guide us right, parents guide us right, we don't really pay too much attention to the peer pressure. It's when the adults in the room stop paying attention to us. And now all of a sudden, we've got nobody else to pay attention to except for these other ratty kids who don't know anything and are going to try to put you in your place. And so it's so important that we understand that once a kid gets into school, their self-esteem is being developed. And if they come out of that experience feeling like they are not good enough, they'll end up on a couch one day. They'll end up coming to a therapist one day, or they'll end up coming to see me. And with that blockage, it says, I wanted that job promotion, but deep down inside, I don't feel like I'm good enough, right? And so that's where the seeds of all this come from. So we have to that's a whole new focus. We have to understand that when our kids get into school, they're competing for attention. They're looking for significance and acceptance. We need to provide that for them because their peers aren't going to do that. They're competing with them. So we have to be mindful of that.
So can we back that up a little bit? I think this is you're stepping, you're moving into something pretty big here, is the I'm not good enough syndrome, which is something that many of us have experienced. Many don't even realize that it's something that that's there deep down. And what you're saying is that as children move into grade school, as their ego starts to as their ego starts to come online, that we we need to be giving them that attention and that approval because they won't be receiving it in grade school. Is that am I understanding correctly from their
Well,
parents?
you have to be, yeah, you're in the right ballpark, but just to more clarify it, some of the kids will get the attention from the teachers and the principals and all from the other adults, right? They're going to be fine. But if you're sitting in a classroom, you're a kid and you're sitting in a classroom with 30 other kids, how much attention can you possibly get? And usually what ends up happening is like 2 or 3 kids will get the attention of the teacher, right? There'll be those 2 or 3 kids that the kids are always, we're not worried about those. It's the other 26 kids that won't be getting the same level of attention. So that's the vast majority of kids going to school. So now the parent really has to pick up. The parent has to really stay on top of what's going on and maybe get more involved with the school if they have time to do that. But if you don't have time to get involved with the school and create kind of a network through the school so that they know that you care and then they'll pay more attention to your child, you got to do it at home.
Where what I'm not understanding is where is that? How does the not good enough syndrome tie into that?
Well, you get the message either from the social pressures. Okay, so if the parents aren't reinforcing that, yes, you are good enough, and that, yeah, you're going to fall down, you're going to make mistakes. Not everything you do is going to be wonderful, but those are opportunities to learn from. Let's see what we can do and build up. And you create a strategy for dealing with failure, okay, which is helpful. If we don't create strategies for failure, and we just assume there are no strategies for failure because nobody's teaching us strategies to deal with failure so you can become successful, the default is I'm a failure. There's nothing else to think of. So if you don't have the adults in the room, giving you that information and lifting you up, then you're listening to your peers who are telling you you're terrible, right? Because they're competing with you. And so that becomes the message. So when the girl that you kind of admire says, I don't like you because you're smelly, suddenly you may have a stigma about smell for the rest of your life, right? And if somebody else says, if you go home and then mom says, get those stinky socks out of the living room, I told you about that. Boom, 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 we're starting to make connections. Okay, so if anytime I smell bad, it's a bad thing, and I'm not good enough to be around people because I'm a stinky person. So that's just one example. It could be that academically you're struggling a little bit, and it's not because you're an idiot. It's just because they haven't placed you in the proper challenge of courses, right? We all need challenge, but some of us are entering classes based upon our chronological age that are too demanding for us. So we're not going to be able to keep up with the average, right? But we're being compared with the average. So the teacher then gives you a D or a C or an F, and you go home and there's a note on there, Johnny's not doing so good. Dad goes, what the hell are you doing in classroom, man? Are you doing the same shit you're doing here? When I talk to you, you don't pay attention. I bet you're not paying attention to your teacher. Whoa, shit, right? What kind of lesson are we getting there?
Yeah, you're knocking on heartstrings, man, talking about all this stuff. Yeah.
So we are ultimately going to go, well, I must not be good enough. I'm not good enough for my dad to give me praise. I'm not good enough for the teacher because he's giving me F's and stuff. They don't understand my struggle. Nobody understands me. So that's the other big one, right? Nobody understands me, right? And then the conclusion is because I'm not good enough. If I was good enough, people would take the time to understand me, to relate to me. But people don't want to give me any time in the day. Nobody wants to give me any acknowledgement or significance. And we're talking about Maslow needs now, right? We're talking about things that we need. We need to feel belonging. We need to feel that we are connected to people. We need to feel significance. And when that's being removed from us by our peers, or more importantly, by the agents that are in charge of our environment, the parents and the teachers of the world, we've got no choice. We don't outrank them. So in our own mind, we go, these superior beings have acknowledged me, knighted me an idiot, or not good enough. And so we take that burden with us for the rest of our lives. And we move through life, and yes, we'll have some successes, but deep down inside, we know that we've got this thing that says that we're not good enough, and we're going to visit that from time to time, and it's going to kill our opportunities in life. So to bring this back around to parenting, if you're demonstrating this as a parent, that there are some things in life that, certain trigger words, if you say certain things and suddenly I can't handle myself, this is the example that you're teaching your child. Oh, that you are limited as well. Everybody's limited, which is a myth. Nobody's limited. You have unlimited potential. It's just a belief that you have. It's been embedded into you because of the conditions that you've been exposed to. And it's just a cycle that's been repeated, generation after generation after generation. You and I could break the cycle. We don't need to keep doing this. That's my mission. My mission is to impact 1 million families by 2030 with this kind of information to teach their kids so the next generation doesn't grow up with all the issues and needs that we have today.
So how do we break the cycle? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about, you have some courses that you've created.
What I'm going to do is Josh and I have an affiliation together, and we're going to pop a link down on the feed here, I guess, in the group, and click on that. That's going to take you to my school, and you'll see all the different classes that are available there. There's self-help development classes. There's a ton on parenting, and I've got some package deals. They range in price. They fit anybody's budget. In fact, I think the best deal that I have is the subscription program. For $29 a month, you have access to everything in the library. There's 25 different programs in the library right now, and I'm continuously upgrading it. If you want more about what Joshua and I are talking about, divorced dads out there, we've got a primo course for you. It's in there. It's for divorced dads. He and I worked on it together. I brought kind of the theory side to it, and Joshua shared his personal experience. I think it's one of the best courses I've ever produced because we get this two perspective, view of what's going on. And Joshua's so dynamic and wonderful. I mean, he's got bigger balls than I do. I got to tell you, because I don't think I would go into some of the stuff that he talked. He's like just took his heart and said, "Here, guys, I'm going to show you. This is what's happening. This is what I'm feeling, and this is what it's all about." And I'm like, "Holy Christ! Oh my God, what's going on here?" So yeah, Josh was great, and we teamed up and we did this course. If you click on the link and you scroll to the bottom, you'll see it right there. I think it's $49. Sign up for that. You'll be doing Joshua and I a big favor. You'll be helping me with my mission. The more money I create, the more opportunity I have to get more of the message out. And really, it's about changing the planet. And it's not that hard, guys. It sounds like a difficult thing, but it really is.
I don't think so.
Right, Joshua, you can attest to this.
We're in it. We're in it together. We're doing this, and I think I want everybody else to get on board, you guys, because this is about helping ourselves and helping our kids and helping the next generation, and we really need it. I think we need it, and our kids need it. And I think that as we move into this, we grow from it, our children grow from it. I'm sure that every single one of you out there wants the best for your kids growing up, wants them to have the most opportunities. And the more that our children believe in themselves and see that there's an infinite amount of opportunities out there, then the more, the change will happen and the ripples will come from it. And Donnie, I want to say thank you so much. Again, what an amazing value-packed hour. Apologies about getting on late here, but I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. So much value here, and this is very this is what we need. This and I cannot believe that there isn't more content out there. So again, guys, there are a bunch of courses that Donnie has put together. I'm going to drop the link below wherever you guys are watching this. If this is Facebook, guys, do me a favor, like it, share it. Okay, you're watching this on the group right now, but we'll put it in other places. Like it, share it with your friends. Tell other people all about Donnie's courses. You could tell people about my work that I'm doing with men and dads also. But again, the link below to Donnie's courses is down there, and I would love for every single person to get on there and to be a part of this change. And it starts now. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Joshua, for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to do anything you ask. Just let me know, and I'll jump on and do one of these again if you like in the future. And again, if you guys have any questions for me, I'll check in the group too. And if there's anything directed to me, I'll do my best to answer ASAP.
All right. So we're going to be clocking out here. It's 10:09. And I hope everyone has a healthy, happy Easter and a healthy Corona. I think that there's a lot of potential for change right now, and there is no better time to step into the realm of ourselves, our inner selves, and we're at home right now. Is there a better time to start working on stuff like this? I don't think so. This is the time. So much love, everyone. Thank you very much, Donnie. And we're going to be ending the recording now. Oh, one more thing. If you're watching this on YouTube, click subscribe. Bye.